What happens when an unexpected encounter profoundly transforms someone's life? This is the question that arises when a single mother struggling to balance her daily responsibilities faces a surprise that will change her destiny. On an ordinary day, Maria, a hard-working woman full of dreams, was shopping at a local supermarket. With 2 children to support and a job that barely covered the bills, she felt overwhelmed and hopeless. Maria had always dreamed of providing a better life for her children, but the challenges of everyday life made that dream seem increasingly distant. As she entered the supermarket, she could hardly imagine that this would be the opportunity she had been waiting for. While pushing her cart down the aisles, her heart felt heavy. The tired look in her eyes and her slumped shoulders reflected the constant struggle she faced. The atmosphere in the supermarket was typical, but Maria's internal pressure was palpable. She thought about the overdue bills and what would become of her family if things didn't improve. As she passed the fruit section, her eyes filled with tears, not only from frustration, but also from the love she felt for her children. How could she give them what they deserved? This question echoed in her mind as she tried not to dwell on the possibility of failing as a mother. It was at that moment that the unexpected occurred. Elon Musk, the renowned entrepreneur known for his innovations and contributions to the world, was in the same supermarket. He noticed Maria's expression and, in a gesture that surprised her, decided to approach her. Instead of being just another public figure, he introduced himself warmly and sincerely. The simple act of talking to her made Maria feel seen and heard in a way she hadn't expected anymore. What began as a brief conversation quickly turned into something extraordinary. Musk, realizing Maria's struggle, decided to surprise her with financial assistance that would allow her to change the course of her life. As tears began to stream down Maria's face, she realized she was not alone in her journey. This act of kindness not only alleviated her financial worries, but also ignited a new hope in her heart. Maria learned that even amidst difficulties, there are magical moments that can change everything. And that change began that day in a crowded supermarket, where a simple gesture had a profound impact. Maria was in shock as she heard Elon Musk's words, feeling as if she had been pulled out of her dark reality. The financial help he offered was like a light at the end of the tunnel, but the joy quickly mingled with concern. How could she handle this new responsibility? What if she couldn't use this gift the right way? In the days that followed, Maria found herself in a whirlwind of emotions. At first, she felt motivated to transform her life and the lives of her children. With the money she received, she was able to pay off some debts, enroll her children in extracurricular activities, and even buy a used car that made commuting to work easier. However, with the improvements came new pressures. Maria began to feel that she not only needed to maintain, but also multiply this luck that had been bestowed upon her. The expectations weighed heavily on her shoulders. As she tried to adapt to this new reality, she also encountered skepticism from some people around her. Friends, neighbors, and even family members began to question how Maria had received this help. Hurtful comments and suspicious glances started to surround her, creating an atmosphere of tension. She felt isolated, as if the help she had received, instead of being a blessing, had become a curse. The pressure mounted every time she left the house, and the weight of responsibility followed her like a shadow. Maria also began to notice small changes in her children. They were excited about the new activities, but the pressure she felt was affecting how she interacted with them. Instead of playing and laughing, she became more demanding, focusing on results and performance. The children, who had once been her greatest source of happiness, began to feel distant. The laughter that once filled the house gradually gave way to a tense silence. Maria wondered if she was doing the right thing, but insecurity consumed her. Meanwhile, a new character began to enter Maria's life. Lucas, an old co-worker, reappeared. He had always had a crush on Maria, and seeing her struggle, he decided to approach her and offer support. However, Lucas also had his own battles. He was fighting against depression and unemployment, which made the dynamic complicated. Maria, even though she needed help, didn't know if she could trust someone who was also facing difficulties. Their friendship began to develop, but the lack of stability in both of their lives created a cycle of distrust and fear. Things worsened when Maria, in an attempt to take control of her life and her children's lives, made some impulsive decisions. She decided to leave her stable job to dedicate herself to a project she believed could be the key to her financial freedom. With the help of a friend who had an online business, she ventured into selling handmade products she created at home. However, reality was not that simple. The initial investment she made did not yield the expected return, and before long, Maria found herself drowning in new debts. This was a critical moment. Maria felt like a failure, a burden to her children, and a weight to those around her. She began to question whether she should have accepted Musk's help or if she would have been happier continuing her simple life. The emotional pressure led her to episodes of anxiety, and sleepless nights left marks on her face. Maria was at a breaking point. Her relationship with Lucas also deteriorated. They began to argue frequently, and misunderstandings became more common. Maria felt overwhelmed and had no energy to deal with yet another problem. What started as a promising friendship turned into an emotional battleground, where both hurt each other instead of supporting one another. Amidst this chaos, Maria began to reflect on her priorities. Looking at her children's faces, she realized that true success was not about having a perfect life or making a lot of money, but about being a present and loving mother. That epiphany brought her back into focus. Instead of getting lost in her frustrations, she decided to seek professional help to better understand her fears and insecurities. It was a difficult but necessary step. By opening up to a therapist, Maria began to learn about the importance of self-care and the need to balance her ambitions with mental health. She realized that strength was not just about working hard, but also about recognizing her limitations. Over time, Maria started to rebuild her bonds with her children and reevaluate her relationship with Lucas. The journey was still far from easy, but now she had a new perspective. By facing internal challenges and external pressures, Maria began to understand that true overcoming did not lie in avoiding failures, but in learning from them and moving forward. One day, while Maria was in her new workspace, a small studio she had rented for her creations, she received an unexpected call. It was from her youngest son's school, David. The director's tone was serious, and anxiety began to take hold of her. "Maria, we need to talk about David. He is not doing well in school and has shown concerning behaviors." The director's words echoed in her mind. A storm of emotions swept over her. Maria felt her heart race and her breath falter. How could this happen, David? She had worked so hard to provide her children with better opportunities, and now this? The thought that her decisions might be affecting their lives hit her like a punch to the stomach. After the conversation, Maria drove to the school, her mind confused and her heart heavy. Upon arrival, she found David sitting in a room, downcast. His expression was one of sadness and discouragement, and it shattered her into 1,000 pieces. Maria recalled how he used to be joyful, always running and playing. Now, that boy was lost in a sea of insecurities. During the meeting with the teachers, Maria listened attentively as they spoke about how David was isolated and struggling to concentrate. The pressure Maria felt in her life seemed to reflect directly on her son. She realized that in her pursuit of success and stability, she had neglected what truly mattered, her children's emotional well-being. On her way home, Maria couldn't stop thinking about the words she had heard. The weight of guilt crushed her. That night, while her children slept, she sat alone in the living room, surrounded by her creations that were supposed to bring joy, but now only left her feeling empty. Maria began to cry, feeling that she had failed as a mother, and the pressure she tried to bear turned into an unbearable weight. The next day, when she woke up, Maria decided that she needed to change. She needed to be present for her children, not just physically, but emotionally. The first thing she did was sit down with David and ask how he was feeling. To her surprise, he opened up. He felt overwhelmed, not just with schoolwork, but by the pressure of being Maria's son who got help from Elon Musk. The truth that she had never noticed revealed itself. David was worried about meeting the expectations he believed everyone had of him. Maria realized that, in her eagerness to improve their lives, she had transferred her own insecurities onto her children. The conversation with David was a turning point. She hugged him and promised they would work together, without pressure, just with love and support. With this new perspective, Maria also decided to reevaluate her relationship with Lucas. Instead of confrontations, she sought to understand what he was going through. By opening up about her own challenges, they realized they were both fighting similar demons. This connection brought a new lightness to their friendship, and together they began to truly support one another. As days went by, Maria started to distance herself from the idea that success was solely about money or recognition. She began to appreciate simple moments, playing with her children, having meals together, laughing, and telling stories. The joy that once seemed so distant began to return to her days. The financial pressure was still present, but now she faced it differently. Instead of letting anxiety consume her, Maria decided she would continue her sales project, but without risking everything she had. She chose to sell her products in a more modest way, just as a supplement to her income, allowing her family not to depend on it for survival. The real change began when Maria recognized that success was not just about money or status, but about being present for those she loved. She learned that being a loving and attentive mother was her greatest achievement. And so, despite all the challenges, Maria began to see her life in a new light. Instead of feeling overwhelmed, she felt strengthened by her experiences. The pursuit of success transformed into a journey of self-discovery and connection, where each small step became a victory. Maria finally understood that true wealth lay in the relationships she cultivated and the love she shared with her children. Maria faced a challenge that made her question her own strength. After the call from school about her son David, she realized that her relentless pursuit of success had created a pressure that affected not only her life, but also her children's lives. A sense of guilt overwhelmed her, making her feel like a failing mother. But instead of letting it bring her down, Maria decided it was time for a change. She began to open up to David, asking how he really felt. To her surprise, the boy vented about his insecurities and the pressure to meet the expectations he believed everyone had of him. Maria understood that unintentionally, she had transferred her own anxieties onto her son. This led her to reflect on the importance of being emotionally present for her children, not just physically. With this new understanding, Maria decided to reevaluate her relationships, especially with Lucas, her longtime friend. Instead of confrontations, she began to share her own difficulties, allowing Lucas to open up as well. This exchange of experiences strengthened their friendship, creating a safe space where they could support each other. Together they faced their challenges, discovering they were not alone in their struggles. Maria realized that true wealth was not in material possessions, but in the relationships she cultivated. She started to value simple moments, like playing with her children or cooking meals together. These small interactions brought joy back into her life, something she had neglected while focusing on her work. Laughter and hugs became her new fuel. Although financial difficulties still existed, Maria adopted a new approach. Instead of letting anxiety consume her, she decided to maintain her sales project in a more modest way. This helped alleviate the pressure on her family, ensuring they did not solely depend on it for survival. With this new perspective, she began to find fulfillment in her life that went beyond financial success. Over time, Maria transformed. She learned that failing was not the end, but rather an opportunity to start anew. By confronting her emotions and internal conflicts, Maria became more resilient. She applied the lessons she learned throughout her journey, making decisions that reflected her personal growth. The love she shared with her children and her renewed friendship with Lucas showed her that life was more than an endless pursuit of success. Maria finally understood that true happiness lay in the connections she nurtured, and this discovery led her to a new path of fulfillment and inner peace. On a sunny afternoon, Maria sat at the kitchen table watching David, who looked downcast and lost in his thoughts. The heavy atmosphere in the air was palpable. She knew something was wrong, and the conversation they had earlier didn't seem to have been enough. With her heart aching, she decided it was time to confront the truth head-on. "David, what do you really feel?" Maria asked, her voice trembling but firm. The boy looked at her, his eyes filled with tears. "I feel like I'm never good enough, that I need to be perfect for you and for everyone." His words cut through Maria's heart. She realized that, in her pursuit of success, she had fostered an unsustainable expectation in her son. In that moment of vulnerability, Maria felt a lump in her throat. It was time to open up. "I feel that way too, my son. Sometimes I think I'm not a good mother and that I have failed. But what really matters is that we are together, and I am here for you, no matter what happens." David's tears began to stream down his face, and he threw himself into his mother's arms. Maria hugged him tightly, feeling a wave of love and understanding wash over her. In that instant, all her anxieties and pressures dissipated. The true connection between mother and son was being restored. That embrace was the revelation Maria needed. She understood that the pursuit of success wasn't worth it if it meant sacrificing the love and happiness of her family. This new perspective made her realize that it was possible to start over, not just in her professional life, but in every aspect of her life. The inner strength she was seeking was there, in the relationships she nurtured and in the love she shared. The transformation had begun, and Maria was ready to embrace a new future, filled with love and understanding. Maria and David, united in that embrace, discovered that love and acceptance were more powerful than any external expectation. From then on, life began to change for both of them. David learned that he didn't need to be perfect. His mother loved him exactly as he was. This new understanding brought lightness to his heart, allowing him to express himself and pursue his own interests without the weight of obligations. Maria, in turn, realized that true success lay in shared happiness, not superficial achievements. She committed to creating an environment where David could thrive, cultivating an even stronger bond between them. The journey of overcoming and learning transformed into a new phase, filled with love and authenticity. Maria and David discovered that together they were capable of facing any challenge, and so they built a more harmonious and happy future. Now we invite you to reflect on your own experiences. What have you learned on your journey? Share your stories in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe. Your interaction is essential for us to continue bringing more inspiring content like this. Let's spread love and understanding together.